Let's go to 5 headlines. Okay, the RNC happened last night, as you might expect. I didn't watch, but based on the highlights after the fact, I say that the best moment wasn't any address given by any politician, but instead the short remarks from the McCloskeys. Now, that's the married couple that stood outside their homes to defend it against a mob that was descending on their neighborhood, is now being prosecuted for that entirely legal act, an act protected by the Second Amendment. And they were invited to deliver a message, and I thought it was short and to the point and pretty powerful. Listen.
America is such a great country that not only do you have the right to own a gun and use it to defend yourself, but thousands of Americans will offer you free advice on how to use it. At least that's what we experienced. What you saw happen to us could just as easily happen to any of you who are watching from quiet neighborhoods around our country. And that's what we want to speak to you about tonight.
That's exactly right. Whether it's the defunding of police, ending cash bail so criminals can be released back out on the streets the same day to riot again, or encouraging anarchy and chaos on our streets, it seems as if the Democrats no longer view the government's job as protecting honest citizens from criminals, but rather protecting criminals from honest citizens. Not a single person in the out-of-control mob you saw at our house was charged with a crime. But you know who was? We were.
And those are exactly the kinds of messages that the Republican Party, I think, needs to amplify. And so far at their convention, they are, which is great. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. It seems that a few of the speakers forgot that there was no audience, and which is tough. Okay, it's especially if you don't do any public speaking, it might not be entirely obvious why it's so difficult, why there's like an extra challenge of not having an audience when you're giving a speech, because you just have to calibrate things differently. It's an entirely different environment when you don't have an audience to play off of and you don't have the applause and everything. So I think some of the speakers forgot that and went for the screaming, raucous pep rally speech in spite of the fact that there was no screaming, raucous pep rally audience there. Kimberly Guilfoyle, for example, turned the dial up to 11 for her speech, which normally I'm all in favor of, but it didn't quite work given the crickets in the background. Watch a clip of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
That's rough. It's pretty hilarious, actually, in a really uncomfortable The Office sort of way. In fact, it reminds me of that scene. I don't know if you're an Office fan, you must have thought immediately the same thing I did, which is the scene of Dwight at the salesman convention getting his award. Really, there's major vibes of that going on. But the effect is, it's like if you went back watching a speech without an audience. It's like if you went back and watched an episode of like King of Queens without the laugh track. So it's, a scene where Kevin James gets caught eating from the jar of mayonnaise or whatever, and then his wife berates him and verbally abuses him for 3 minutes. A scene like that without the cue of the crowd laughing would be like depressing and disturbing. And it would make you want to call the police about the domestic abuse. But with the crowd telling you, this is funny, laugh, it has a whole different flavor to it. So same here with the convention speeches. You don't realize how important the psychological cues of the crowd are until you don't have it. So we are sheep, is what I'm trying to tell you. We react to things emotionally based on how other people are reacting. They tell us how we're supposed to react, and then we react that way. Okay, number 2, a guy named Giancarlo Granda says that he has been in a throuple, sort of, with Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife for many years now. He's also a business partner of Falwell's to make things weirder. And to make them even weirder, from what I understand, the business partnership started after the throuple business. Not that it would be much better if it was before, but I don't know, it's just weird, like you're in this kind of arrangement and then you decide to start a business together. So he says the couple met him when he was a pool boy. And it's really, actually a pool boy. And then he soon started a relationship with Falwell's wife, and then Falwell will watch as they're involved in their activities, as he's involved in an activity. When I say in an activity, I don't mean playing Monopoly. Okay, you get my drift. But he's involved in that with the wife, and then Falwell will watch. So Falwell's a literal cuckold, if this is true. Now, the board of directors at Liberty have asked Falwell to resign. He originally said he was going to, and then said he wasn't. But now, from what I understand, he really is resigning. And this is all coming on the heels of that picture of him with his pants unbuttoned on the yacht with the young woman, and then if you recall, he called into a radio show to explain it, and he really seemed to be drunk or out of it in some way when he was on the radio show. So it's been one humiliating episode after another, and normally I would say that this is salacious gossip, it's irrelevant, who cares, and that's still how I feel. Like, I don't care that much, but the problem here is that Falwell was a powerful Christian leader, quote unquote Christian leader, big scare quotes on that. And he made millions of dollars by cultivating that brand and selling it to the public and convincing, people to send their kids to his school. A school where, by the way, many kids have been expelled for doing exactly the kinds of things that he was apparently doing all the time in his private life. If you do that, and then it turns out that you're a degenerate weirdo, well, then your degeneracy is news. And that's really your fault. I don't feel at all sorry for you. You profited off of cultivating a brand that was completely false, and you treated your faith like a brand, made a lot of money off of it, and now you're exposed. That's your fault. And personally, I'm so damn tired of quote unquote Christian leaders turning out to be scumbags that I have no sympathy for them, no appetite to defend them. Not that I would defend them anyway, but you want to mock them and laugh at them, go ahead, really. They deserve it. I'm so tired of this. I'm not surprised by it. That's sort of my point. I wish I was surprised. I wish I was surprised that someone like Jerry Falwell Jr. is this. I'm not at all. None of us are. It's what we come to expect. And it really shouldn't be that way. All right, let's go to number 3. Here's an interesting video. It appears that Black Lives Matter scumbags were marching through D.C. I think it's the claim online is that it's D. I'm not sure what city this is, but they were apparently demanding that people at the restaurant that you're about to see here raise their fists for Black power. And one brave couple refuses to act like a trained SEAL, responding to commands, and this is what happened because of that.
Put your mask on now, huh? Mother pasty piece of shit. White supremacy. Hey!
Yes, be that couple. That's the couple you should be. Those are brave people who retain their dignity. Now, personally, I would have loved to see them raise the fist and then slowly turn it around and raise the middle finger. I would have, that would have been fun if they had done that. But this was good too. So be them. Do not be the embarrassing mustachioed coward to the right, who you probably noticed with sitting there with his fist up, and just that look of total shame on his face. How do you live with yourself after that? You've got this mob of scumbags just shouting at you, telling you to bark on command like a dog, and you actually do it. And it's on film. I mean, how do you live with that? Totally embarrassing. He's given up his dignity forever, and it's really not worth it. So good for that couple, and that's how everybody should respond. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they tell you to do. You got this mob of bullies coming back and say, "Hey, do this. Perform this act right now because I told you to." I don't care what it is. You should refuse to do it. On the principle of it. Oh, well, who do you think you are? I'm not going to listen to you. Why should I listen to you? Why? I don't care at all what your opinion is of me. All right, very important report here from the New York Post. It says, while older texters may consider the period an innocent symbol that a sentence has ended, digital natives consider it a triggering form of aggression. The punctuation problem ignited over social media recently, with Gen Z and millennials agreeing that ending a sentence with a period is overly hostile and, worse yet, extremely uncool. Digital culture journalist Victoria Turk, in her book, Kill, Reply All, it's a book on digital etiquette, so you go pick that up, said only old people or troubled souls put periods at the end of every sentence. The younger generations consider the act of sending a text a sufficient signifier of a complete thought, Turk wrote, making periods feel unnecessary and overly final. Okay, and it goes on from there. We could keep reading, but I won't. I just have to say, I could just sum it up. I'm actually in full agreement with this. And I thought this was common knowledge that periods in a paragraph or a series of sentences are fine, of course. Very much advised in that case. But a period after one word or one sentence and then sent via text message or email is passive aggressive. And this is simply a fact. I thought everyone knew that. And since we're canceling punctuation marks, I would also like to throw in, speaking of aggressive punctuation marks, the exclamation point, I think also deserves to be on the ash heap of history. Exclamation points are almost never necessary. If you want to communicate enthusiasm, you're excited about something, you should be able to do that via the words you're typing. You should be able to express yourself in a way that makes your enthusiasm clear without needing the exclamation point. And this is especially true of men. Okay, it's women can get away with exclamation points. Children can get away with exclamation. If you're a grown man, you should never be using an exclamation point, except sarcastically or ironically. Those are pretty much the only times where it's acceptable. Speaking of dignity, no grown man can keep his dignity while sending an exclamation point. And that is also just a simple fact. 5, finally, another thing here that gets my full endorsement and agreement. Report from Sky News that says KFC will suspend its finger lickin' good slogan after 64 years because it doesn't quite fit with coronavirus hygiene messaging. The U.S. fried chicken chain has released new images of advertising posters and packaging with the slogan blurred and pixelated. It says Colonel Sanders' its finger lickin' good saying will return when the time is right, but will alter its messaging for now because they're worried about the coronavirus. This is good and responsible. I'm on board with it, and it has nothing to do with coronavirus for me. Just in general, people who lick their fingers after eating are disgusting savages, unfit for human society. It may, in fact, be the number one most nauseating personal habit a person can possibly have. It's barbaric. And the worst thing is, how many people, after licking their fingers, actually go and wash their hands? Their fingers are now covered in their own slobber. How many of those people are going to wash their hands? Very few of them, because they think their saliva is sufficient. They're like cats, thinking they can clean themselves with their own tongues. I'd hate to see how they clean the rest of their bodies. I don't know if they're like in the shower with the shower turned off, spitting on themselves, washing in the mucus with a loofah. I don't know. But this, just to be clear, we are human beings. Our saliva is not sterile. Okay, there's all kinds of germs in it. It's completely disgusting. We have invented, we live in a civilized world. We have running water and faucets. Wherever you are, there's probably one nearby. Even if you don't have access to a faucet, there's still no excuse to lick your fingers. So this has been I've been boycotting KFC really for years just because of this slogan. I think it's the most offensive slogan from any company, and I'm glad they're finally getting rid of it. Hey, you, you right there. Hit the subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It's somewhat appreciated.